Hello, hello. Welcome to my reading notes and annotations of the day. I've been writing. It's been fun. This has been all over Lower Ed, the book. I'm finally done. I was actually done early last week. Went ahead and tried to get a little ahead in the game. Got a lot of stuff going on right now. I have a ton of questions that I've crafted for our discussion. So I want to take a few moments and walk down through those. I know we're going to be going into some detail in the book talk for these questions. But it's good to kind of get some ideas of why I was thinking certain things about it. You've already heard my little spiel over the basics of the book. This is Lower Ed. It's a study, kind of a look into the for-profit college industry and how it kind of marginalizes people that don't really need to be going to get credentials, but need a credential, but then get hammered because they're going to get a credential with debt, and they usually don't finish, and they don't get the credential, so they can't get the job, but they still have the debt, and the for-profit colleges benefit and those people don't. So that's kind of my summary real quick for you. But a few questions that I have prepared, and I know we will not get to all of these in our book talk. There's no way in the world we'll do it. So I'll pose these to you, and you can think about them just a little bit, because I've been playing around with the book in my head. It was one of those reads that wasn't super surprising to me, but at the same time I learned a lot about the for-profit college industry. They're kind of jerks. It's kind of the way I think about it. Monetarily, they make good money. I mean, business side of my head says, oh yeah, I see why people do that. The actual human in me says it's a horrible idea. No one should ever profit from that. It's kind of like selling organs. I could do it. I could make a lot of money taking people's kidneys out and selling them. But I probably shouldn't do that because that's kind of monetizing physical assets that would actually put the poor in a weird spot. Long story. We used to talk about that in economics as well. So anyway. Question 1. Throughout the book, the author kept bringing up the idea of the educational gospel and essentially said that for-profit colleges are not following it. What are your thoughts on the educational gospel and how for-profit colleges fit in? I'm not sure they really do, but something to think about. Question 2. The author brought up an interesting point that if for-profit colleges did not exist, something else would end up filling the void. Put your imagination to the challenge and think of a few ideas how this void could be filled with the idea of students first, profit second. Kind of one of those brain teasers. This is something that I kind of was wondering. I was wondering why the United States government, particularly since they're funding a lot of these for-profit colleges through the financial aid process, doesn't invest that money instead into credentialing bodies that are kind of like almost a Work One location, but basically you could go and get kind of like a community college too. So I can see where this is all a big crazy, it's a random thought. But anyway, a credentialing body where essentially you could go and get XYZ credentials for free if you were going to do something. So I get there's money to be made and there's people that have to be staffed, but at the same time they're paying for profit colleges anyway. Could be something there, something to work with in my brain of mine. Question number 3. To me, the financial aid system kept being brought up, and for the ability of for-profit colleges to access the funds was the major economic driver behind the rapid expansion of the sector. What changes should be made or could be made to reduce the access to these types of colleges to that financial aid dollars? That's weird. I mean, I can't. If you have a educational desert, say I'm in a location where there's no community colleges nearby, no regular institutions, and for-profit pops up, it's not really fair to the people there if they need that schooling to actually get a job to not be able to use the funds that are in that area. But at the same time, by putting it in the way they have done it, essentially people are paying, or colleges are choosing students as, give me your social number, let me run this financial aid through it, and we'll be happy. Number 4, the author spent time working in 2 different for-profit colleges, and I personally thought it skewed her views, and I think she brought that out in her book on the process, and she gave a real critical look at the institutions. So what do you think you noticed differently if you were studying for-profit colleges? I'll bring up one thing here that really caught my eye and why I wrote this question in the first place. The sales process that they were explaining to kind of get students admitted to the colleges was the exact sales process I was taught in sales school, or my sales major at Ball State. I'm actually teaching a class that teaches that kind of method. It's called spin selling. Situational, implication, or problem, implications, and needs and advancement. It's the same freaking thing. They're just using it and calling it the pain funnel, which is a really scary name when you look at it. But it's essentially that. Spin selling was figure out, talk to somebody, get what they do, get their situation of what they're doing, how they're doing it, so you have something to think about. Then start drilling down a little bit further to see what their problems are. Okay, you told me that you spend a lot of your time doing X. Why is that the case? Well, because it's not very efficient. Blah, 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 blah. So you start drilling that in there. You start figuring out, okay, see if you can monetize it. How much time or money are you spending on X, Y, or Z? Then you get the implications part. You go, okay, well, what happens if you don't fix this? What happens if you keep doing this? What happens if it keeps happening? And you kind of get to that pain point that is used in the textbook, actually, that I'm reading. How do you find that pain point to really get them to want to make a change? Once you get that pain point, then you push into it. If I'm able to solve your problem XYZ to help you prevent these implications that I brought up that you've actually told me yourself, would you be interested in learning more? Can I put a presentation together for you? The same damn thing. For-profit colleges are using it to recruit people. Makes sense. It's a sales technique. Business World says this. I looked at it through that. They're actually a use of an application of sales tips that was being taught. That's definitely not a good thing, but I started seeing things a little bit differently as I was looking at that. Market segmentation as well. I would be doing the same thing in a marketing class if I was telling how to target to people. Think about who really is going to be the ones attending, who really want to hear your message, and who's going to be your customers. There's an ethical boundary you have to play with if you're on my side of the equation. But I looked at it just slightly differently than the author did. Question 5. One of the people mentioned in the book he was planning to use the financial aid money to start a business, or a hustle as it was quite often referred to. Should this be allowed? Why or why not? This is a tough one. I'm going to say it depends. And I'm going to say there probably needs to be some system in place to provide money at a lower interest rate or a lower cost to people who are going to be trying to start a business up, specifically through a small business development center. Maybe it already exists. Maybe the people that are accessing this money don't know about those resources. I haven't done that for a bit, so I can't really go on it, but just something to think about there. Question 6. We have read about the recruiting techniques for-profit institutions. How do you think COVID-19 impacted their practices with the reduction of face-to-face meetings? They were basically trying to get people to campus. Get somebody in the door, we'll show them, get them to sign the paperwork while they're here. This time last year, you couldn't do that. What the hell happened? Really cool study. See, I'm always about that kind of thing, but cool look there. And I asked, has anybody attended a for-profit college or know someone who did? What was that experience like? Close friend that went to a for-profit college, not so great experience. It was okay, but I'm telling you, he didn't learn nearly as much as I've learned in one semester in this program, but it's hard to judge because this is a whole different area. So, I don't know. Just a curiosity I had there. And then the last one is, what policy changes do you think need to occur to help regulate the for-profit college sector? Not sure I have an answer for that, but it's just something to play around with. So if I am correct, this may be one of the last RNA assignments that we're doing. So I want to thank you for watching all of these. You may see me one or two more times. I know we're getting to the end of the semester, but I do want to say thanks for taking the time to watch all these videos. It's a lot of me just blabbering and going through the readings, but it does help me kind of process and helps you kind of understand what I have been thinking through this material. So if you've actually sat and watched all of these, bravo! You can, funny story to end it with. So Danny, my kid, is, so what we're doing is I was reading an article about 5 weeks before he was born. This is going to be your last story for the day. So about 5 weeks before he was born, I was reading this article about how this guy was actually, had bought his kid a bottle of scotch every year since he was born. And he was doing this so that he could celebrate with him on his 21st birthday and start drinking it. It's cool. And this article actually went into how the scotch had actually appreciated in value for a good period of time. And it has actually ended up to pay for his college. Real fascinating, real interesting read. If you get a chance, look Scotch paid for college kind of article, you'll probably find it. So I decided I would do the same with Danny, because I'm weird like that. So right when he was born before, I actually bought a small bourbon barrel. It's sitting in my garage. And I filled it with Maker's Mark, and it's engraved on the front. It's say from mom and dad, age to perfection, 21 years. Actually, it'll be 22 when he turns 21. This is the first, right when you were born, has his birthday and everything on there. That was my first attempt at it. So then I decided need to go get another bottle because he had turned 1 in January. I just hadn't got around to purchasing it, and it was on my to-do list. So last week I stopped at Muncie Liquor on Wheeling, and I walked in and I said, "Hey, my name's Chris. I am looking to buy," sounds really weird when I say it, "a bottle of bourbon for my 1-year-old." And the guy goes, "Huh?" I said, "Okay." So I told him the whole Scotch story. He goes, "I'm not supposed to do this, but hold on." So he walks to the back and grabs this. This is a bottle of Henry McKenna single barrel, bottled in bond. This was actually barreled on 3/24 of 2010. It's a 10-year bourbon, and it is one of those raffle bourbons. So it's not one you're going to ever find on the shelf. It's about a $42 bottle of bourbon. I don't know if you needed to know that or not. But on the side market, it sells between $90 to $120. Basically, scarcity, supply, and demand. So Danny's first bourbon in his collection, outside of that bottle or barrel we have in the garage, is the Henry McKenna. So I got to thank that guy, and I figured if we were going to finish the story off, I'd show you something on my desk and we go from there. So thank you, and have a great rest of the day, and I'll see everybody in class.